map back
Hey,
there.
I think it's starting here. Grant, go ahead because I'm sure it's rolling.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If we are rolling, we are live. My name is Grant Henry. I don't know if you can see the people behind me right now, but their faces will be revealed shortly. Tonight, we are coming to you just wanting to bring remembrance and celebration to a man that his legacy will live past, I think, any that are personal in our lives. And we are live, Sean. I'm seeing this right now. We're celebrating the life of John Adams, right? A guy that embodies everything that it is to be a Christian, everything that it is to be a community leader. And I wanted to just give us a quick opportunity here for everybody in the Knoxville community, but especially this real news community, to take a bit of time and tell stories about who this man was, how he affected your life, how he impacted you personally. And let's be for real here, y'all. You know, the real news community in particular very likely would not even be a thing if not for John Adams taking a chance on some random nobody kid coming out of law school and wanting to play politics for a little while. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it really was because this guy took a chance on me that I even have the opportunities to do what I'm doing now with the job that I have now, with the people and the relationships that I have now. I think Nick could say some of the same as well. Before we get into this, though, I want to tell a quick story as to how I met John Adams to set the stage and sort of, basically, I don't know, give some ideas as to the stories we're going to tell here for tonight. So Shine's going to join me in telling this story here for a minute. But the first time that I met John Adams, we actually have to go all the way back to the Real News OG Richard Esparza. That's where this whole thing started. Richard Esparza and Eric Wider. We were doing the Liberty Boys at night. It was a terrible name. I didn't come up with this. Don't blame me for this, okay? But we were hanging out, having
called Friends of Liberty, which is a way cooler sounding name than the Liberty Boys. I think you were like had a vote for that, and I'm like, no, Friends of Liberty. We even had Friends a newsletter, so I remember it. But
that's right.
Yeah.
But we were hanging out, having some brews, having some hot wings, doing the thing, and we would obviously talk politics while this stuff was going on. At one point, we ended up going back to David's place and started recording these versions of political conversations. And without our knowledge, Richard Esparza started shopping this podcast around to local talk radio outlets. One day, John Adams calls Richard Esparza and says, "Who are these kids? I want to put them on air." David called me, and I remember him saying directly to David, "Does he know what we do? Does he know who we are? Does he understand the types of things we talk about and the potential volatility that we bring to some of the conversations?" Nevertheless, David and I, we composed ourselves. We got together and we drove into the parking lot. And Shine and I sat there in that parking lot. I'm going to let Shine pick up the story from here. We sat there in that parking lot for about 30 minutes because Shine had been in the world of radio for a while. Then Shine, take it over from there, because this is, knowing John Adams, this conversation for a precursor is perfect.
Yeah, we sat out in the parking lot and I like war gamed it because I'd done things in entertainment. Like I've been in music and I'd been on the radio at several radio stations in the East Tennessee area, 6 or 7 years before that. And let's just say I was a little jaded about general managers at radio stations. And I'm like, Grant, don't do any talking. Whatever he says, we're going to ask for more. If he tells us I really wanted the morning show slot. And I don't think we had heard that was available, but I said, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell him that we're going to get the morning show slot. And it really, as we learned and as, everybody watching this stream learned, we didn't need to have our guard up like that. We didn't need to have everything close to the vest. John Adams was a guy you could make a square deal with and never wondering what was coming around the corner.
Yeah.
And not only that, he supported us more than I thought he ever would. He didn't just like show us where the room was and how to turn the lights on and stuff like that. He filled in on the board when people were sick. He co-hosted with us. I think he filled in for us and things like that. All kinds of things that you wouldn't expect, or at least I wouldn't expect with my experience in radio. Getting that, I don't know if you call it extra service because it's not like we were paying or anything like that. But like it was like working with a friend, not like working. Like I'd worked in clubs, I'd been on the radio, and it was always someone trying to squeeze something out of you. And John was always trying to get more for us. Being supportive so we could do more, as opposed to trying to squeeze stuff out of us.
Yeah. And
And
John's the kind of guy that during that first meeting, I remember Shine saying at the time, at the end of the meeting, Shine was trying to make a big pitch for ourselves. And he turned to John at one point and said, John, look, if you give us a shot at this evening show, we're going to have the morning slot within 6 months. And John kind of chuckled, but said, no, I believe it. And he was sincere. Like, that's how much he believed in us. That's how much encouragement he gave from the very first meeting. He said, I believe it, y'all. I believe it. Right. But honestly, John was the kind of guy that at that time in my life, he gave me a chance when nobody else did. He saw something in me that I don't think I even saw myself at the time. I think he gave me the opportunity to speak truth into people's lives when I was desperate to do so. He gave me inspiration to be where I am currently right now. He gave me the possibility of befriending this community here, of getting to know the people that you see the faces of. And you can't see Erin right now because she's not talking, but she's on the line with us as well, too. Richard Esparza is going to call us in. I think every one of us is forever indebted to John for how selflessly he poured into every single person around him. That's who he was, right? That's the kind of guy John was. He wasn't just a man to be emulated. He was a Christ first led individual, which is vitally important. And honestly, I think one of my favorite times spent with John, and then I'm going to kick it around to Nick and Daniel to tell some of their stories. My favorite things spent with John were the debriefs after those morning shows. I've known tons of radio station owners, I'm sure Shine has as well, who never once listened to the shows on their own airwaves. Certainly not the local shows. John listened to every single minute of every single morning broadcast. He believed in what we were doing personally and as the show. He believed in the community that was being built in Knoxville and that is still being constructed on his shoulders right now. And I think my favorite thing was after I get done with the show, I'd walk into his office most mornings. I'd sit down in these two chairs right in front of him. I'd sit down. Roz was usually on the other side of one of those chairs. Sit down and say, hey, well, how do you think it went? And the words that we exchanged during those sort of little impromptu meetings have forever shaped who I am now. And again, as I said previously, John, the way he poured into me, for every one story you hear like that of mine, there's 10 other stories that you don't know, or there's 10 other stories that might be sitting on the screen right now. And I have countless stories that I'd love to tell about John, but I don't want to, commandeer the entire thing today. Nick, let me kick it to you, buddy, and just see what's on your mind right now,
Yeah. First of all, Grant, thanks for putting this whole thing together. That it would be Grant that does all this, has probably one of the biggest hearts out of all of us on the Real News crew. And to get together and talk about John, I think all of us can probably say the same thing about John, is we're at a different point in life. We have moved on to something else because of John. We had inspiration that we might not have even known about ourselves because of John. And every day that we went into that radio station, no one was happier to see us than John was. And the first thing out of his mouth every time you'd see him was, what can I do for you? Are y'all okay? Do you need coffee? Can I go get donuts? Whatever it was never, to be the general manager, John never walked in and said, this is what you're going to talk about today, or these are the things you have to stay away from, or a script or whatever it was. I mean, everybody that was in that room can testify and say, John never knew. He let us do our own thing. Right? He had full faith in us. And we'd be 45 minutes into a show and he'd come walking down the hall laughing, going, did y'all really just say that? Or say, hey, add this. This is great. I love what y'all are going on right now. John, I was on a Bob Bell show last week talking about John. And I read a Bible verse that I think perfectly sums up John. I've got it here, and it's Psalm 78:72. And it's, with upright heart, he shepherded them and guided them with his skillful hand. And I think that is so John. John wanted us to win more than we wanted ourselves to win. He would see something in us, see where we were going with something. And in his own way, he would never just come right out and tell us what we were doing was right or what to change. He would poke at us and say, have you thought about this? Or I love where you're going with that. Keep up with that. It was such constructive criticism. He was such just a father figure. He wanted you to win. And I mean, John Adams, just can't say enough about him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, again, he caused you to see yourself in a way that you had never believed you could, right? And I'm not trying to spin this too much, honestly. Like I'm telling you, he really took, not just for me, great men, women that we know now. He caused you to see yourself in a way to have potential and encouragement that you never really thought you could actually do that before, right? Who am I? I'm some random. Who am I? Who's some kid you're going to put on radio? Some guy at the time? Who would listen to me? My claim to fame at the time was possibly speaking a little bit quicker than Ben Shapiro. That was it. You know what I'm saying? It's all I had going for me. And John Salsom there said, fine, run with it. At least you got that much, right? You can feign like you're more intelligent or something.
And Grant, I mean, it was the same for me. I was a freshman at UT, and I just literally, I mean, I was not from Knoxville. I'm from Georgia, and I Googled talk radio stations in Knoxville and emailed the station managers at the different stations around Knoxville. And John emailed me back the next day, and we met that week. I actually went to the wrong radio station for the meeting, but I was like 3 hours early, so it worked out. And I still ended up showing an hour early to the meeting, not knowing I was just on cloud nine that a radio station manager wanted to talk. And that week was the week that I went on Real News. And for a show, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. It was during the week. And I just remember talking to him, and I can still see the look in his eyes of just something was lighting up. Every time you spoke to him, I don't know another way to put it other than I would imagine it's what talking to Santa would be like.
Yeah, I hear you.
Completely cheerful in every meaning of the word every time you talk to him. And that was John.
Yeah. Hey, let me go to Daniel, and then I'll go to Aaron here in the line here too. Daniel, I know you've had interactions with John that was sort of on the tail end of the Real News type thing, but nevertheless had about as much interaction with him as anyone else did. Yeah. What's in your mind?
John, I remember meeting John a long time ago. And again, it was the Richard Esparza, right?
Richard, man.
I'm telling you, that guy's awesome. Richard Esparza is the man. And, Richard was pretty much telling me, look, there's, you need to meet John Adams. He's part of the station. I think, he's a good conservative man. And we maybe be a good connection to him. So I was like, okay, cool. I ended up meeting John, and, I was actually in law school still. So I wasn't even a lawyer. I didn't even graduate yet. I was in my third year. And John, went off on me. He pretty much went, oh man, this is so great. You're a young guy. You're involved in politics. I hope you stay involved. And I'm glad I did. But, John would always, I can still hear his voice in my head. It was either Daniel or Daniel-san. It was one of the two, man. And John, you want to talk about such a loving husband, a loving father, and such a great man. I mean, he never once talked down to me because of my age. He never once made me feel like I was inferior. He always gave me the utmost respect. And it's just very rare to find someone like John who truly shows respect to every single person. And he saw something in me and Elaine Davis, and he gave us a morning show too. So and that was going for about 6-7 months. So, and again, I'm not from Knoxville. I'm not. I barely when I met John, I was only here for about a year and a half. So, but again, he never once talked down. Never once belittled me. Always gave me the most respect. And honestly, he was an incredible person. And I'm sorry that, he ended up passing through this, COVID. But he is a good man. And I can tell you, speaking to Roz and speaking to some others, even when he was at his worst, he was always worried more about his wife and his kids. He put them first, even when he needed it. And that just shows the values of this man and the incredible person he was. And honestly, we as a community, as Tennesseans and as humans are missing a big hole because we lost someone like him.
Well said, man. That's what it is. Yeah. I mean, what really leaves an impact is how selfless he was with his time with everyone else. Like the one commodity you can never get back. The most valuable commodity we have is the time that he spent investing into other people and the opportunities that he gave to other people. Right. It was always prioritizing the way you should prioritize anything. Christ first, your wife second, your family third, your people other before you. He always put himself last. Right. And it did become this thing where, because he set his priorities so properly, it allowed people like me and David to do incredible things in the community that we never would have had a chance to do otherwise. Here's what I mean by that. Sean, you remember the Gateway Grocery people?
I do. Great folks.
Right?
Great
okay,
folks.
so the Gateway Grocery people, again, I think through Richard Esparza, I may be wrong about this. Maybe you found these people, but one way or another, they came in and said, like, hey, we have this cool local business idea. We're getting some traction. We'd love to have some opportunity to spread the word. We brought the idea to John. John, being the selfless person he is, said, hey, man, we're not going to get a paid segment for it, but it's y'all's airwaves. Do whatever you want to with it, right? It's not just the simple matter of, and Shine can speak to how rare that is in radio for a manager just to give you airtime like that. But it's not just the simple matter of fact of saying, hey, yeah, go give these kids a shot. It's because he prioritized his life in a way that's to be emulated like that, that we then took that on ourselves, even subconsciously said, hey, if we got airtime, you got airtime. Now these guys have a thriving business as well, right? I mean, that's the kind of guy John was.
Yeah, and I want to kind of I want to say too, it's as someone who like worked in the radio business, it's not like he was just giving away the farm. I mean, he was good. He was a good manager. The station did pretty well, and it's because he was a good manager. There was that space for those organic things to happen. There was that space to put faith in some younger people. You know, we're all talking about like being given opportunities by John Adams. There was that space. So I just want people to know, like, this whole thing of him being a very giving open person was balanced by the fact he was a really good general manager. He wasn't just giving it all away and running the thing into the ground by just giving everybody free airtime and stuff. It was because he had those proper priorities, as Grant said, and because of the kind of person he was, that made it possible to do those things. And it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, the Gateway Grocery thing is just one of a number of examples where you could talk about where he just let the organic thing happen because it was best for the community, because it was best for the radio station, because it was best for the individuals involved. And he always found a way to just like be the way that synergy happened. You know, and I want to say too, something that was always and then I'm sorry, I know Miss Aaron's next here, but I wanted to just throw it out there. Something that meant a lot to me is he was just committed to there being a conservative voice on the Knoxville airways. And I'm not trying to disparage any other radio stations or television stations or anything like that. I'm not saying that was the only one, but he was going to make sure there was at least one, no matter what, at any given time. And that was even up to, I mean, he was planning a whole new local show. I met with him 2 weeks ago. He was planning on doing a whole new local show starting in January. And so he was working on that up until he got sick. And that passion, that was, I don't know, maybe it's because I was on the radio for a while. That was something I always, and never had the power to do, always wanted, but never had the power to do. And like, he was kind of like this older, more experienced, the guy with the means who could make that thing that I wanted to happen. And that drive meant a lot to me. Meant a lot to me that, like, he put, you know, I wasn't able to stay on the show, and then Nick got on the show, and then Daniel had a show, and Elaine got on the air, and then he was planning on putting on these people next year that had never been on the air before, but had some experience. So really great guy, and committed to not just his own business and making money, and not even just to his family and his friends, but to the community at large, and making sure the community had a voice.
Hey, and by the way, there's no real timeline for what we're doing here tonight. We're kind of just going to let this roll organically as possible. But if you do have a story to tell about John, you want to call in 615-212-2174, 615-212-2174. That's a Google Voice number. We can put you through on this, or I can just private message you the Zoom link if you want to come in and do it that way. Aaron, unfortunately, did have to drop off, but I do want to tell one of my favorite stories about John Adams that has more to do with Miss Michaela around Knoxville. And what was it, Nick, that John called Michaela from Knoxville? What was the spin he put? Is something that made it sound like she was a lady of the night. You know
Michaela around town.
That's not funny at all. But anyways, yeah, Michaela.
Bless her heart.
I don't think that was on purpose the first time.
I don't think so, but it's stuck.
But that's why it stuck. Because he was this cute man who just said, "How about Michaela around town?"
It probably slipped that first time. He, being so innocent,
Right.
didn't recognize it. Right, exactly.
You know, Grant, I think we were talking about Bill Clinton that segment too when he did that. And we were playing Bill Clinton on Fluency
Yes,
music.
sir.
I'm like, you cannot make this segment up right now.
And it was on a Friday. Michaela was coming. Michaela around town. Wait a minute. Oh man. Anyways, but one of my favorite stories is when Michaela around Knoxville had just put out her merch line. And let me pull this picture up. She put out a merch line, and I think the only T-shirt she'd brought in that day were female tank tops. You know what I'm saying? And this is what Nick and I are doing the show. We're in the middle of it. Michaela's about to come on live. We're in the middle of Michaela's set on a Friday afternoon. It's like the end of the show, right? And this, I think you can see this. I mean, this is what comes around the corner. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Michaela only brought in female tank tops, but I'm saying this is the kind of guy John would. He's the kind of guy he was, right? Full on, sold out to his people, anything for the cause, anything to promote and spread the message, anything to just like add some levity to
And he
the
didn't
room.
just wear it just for that picture. He wore it
No,
all
he did. He wore it all
day. He wore it all
day.
day.
He probably asked for it too, knowing him. He probably said, "Here," left the studio, went into his office and put it on. And went, "What do y'all think?"
Yeah. He rocked it pretty hard though. Let's say that much, right? Oh man. But again, you know, I think even just look at the people. Roz says, how can I get on this? Roz is talking into us, by the way. Roz, I want to talk about her in just a second. And then Roz, the number, if you want to call in or give me just a second, Roz, I'll actually give me 2 seconds. And let me tell this story and I'll message you to Zoom. Actually, let me kick it to Nick or Shine or Daniel. I message Roz the Zoom invite here. You guys do some radio air filler, whatever you're going to do here. I'll bring up the stuff. Go
You know,
ahead, Sean.
so
Sorry.
like while he's trying to get Roz on the Zoom call here. I mean, I know we've already talked about it, but like the way he would make you feel like a star.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's put it like that. Like he was always telling me like, man, can we get some new intros? Your intros sound so good, you know, like and then he would come up with his own ideas like maybe we could do it like this, and just made me feel like I was doing production at Fox News or something like that. Or as the way Grant said, you know, we'd do a segment and he'd like run in during the commercial break and be like, that was awesome. That was awesome. And then just walk out, you know. But I don't know if do y'all know what I'm talking about, right, Nick, Daniel?
Yeah, he several times. I remember we would have a show, and when it was you and Grant, and when it was Grant and I was on it, or the three of us, or just several different times. I remember him walking in the studio, and John had worked nationally in different radio stations, Florida, Missouri. Several programs that were nationwide with either talk radio or Christian networks. And I remember one of the best days at the radio station was he came in right after we were done and said, guys, that is national radio show quality. You could be syndicated nationwide. That was so good. And to hear a guy